Hey guys, today I want to talk to you about my law firm, For Creators by Creators PC. My law firm is about a year old, and I founded it with the idea of representing content creators and social media influencers in a space that I saw that we needed a lot more advocacy in. So in this video, we're gonna do an overview of how I got into this space, why I started this firm, what the process was like for starting the firm, what kind of clients I take, what kind of work I do, and some nitty-gritty stuff too, like how much are my expenses every month for my law firm, and we'll talk about the money side too, and how much money I'm making from this income stream. For those of you who are new here, hello, I'm Julian. I'm a lawyer, I'm an advocate for mental health, and in my channel, we talk about the legal profession, career tips, and sometimes lifestyle. Before we begin, hit that sub button, drop a comment and say what's up, and hit that bell so that you can get notified of new videos. All right, let's dive right in. So let's talk about the origin story of the law firm, and we'll make this brief because I don't want to be one of those 80-year-old partners that ends up talking about themselves for like way too long, to the point that the person in front of them is like half falling asleep. So you might know me from my content that I've uploaded to YouTube that has actually not much to do with practicing law as much as it is about giving legal advice or talking about mental health. I quit working in big law at the law firm Wilson Sonsini during the pandemic in 2021. Right after I quit, I started talking about mental health on social media, and I quickly blew up, mainly because of my story being a high achiever but also having a lot of struggles. And I also started making a lot of content about the law and legal profession and giving advice to future pre-law students too. So within about 6 months of being a content creator, I started getting brand deal opportunities, which were awesome. I mean, this is the way that you can make money in social media, right? And at the time, I was making $0 a month because I quit big law and I had nothing lined up after. So I get a brand deal contract from my very first client, which was Fishbowl. If you don't know Fishbowl, and this is not sponsored, they are one of these professional networking apps that let you anonymously talk to people in your company and in other companies about the culture of the companies and whatnot. Anyway, I get the contract from them, and I see all sorts of terms that are really egregious for the creator. Really good for the brand, Fishbowl, really not good for me. We'll get into some of these terms later, but at a baseline, there were things like uncapped indemnification, which basically means that if Fishbowl were sued as a result of my video, they could come after me for the millions of dollars in legal fees that they incur defending themselves in that lawsuit. Just doesn't seem right for like a video that's worth a couple $1,000s, right? But it was beyond that too. It was the intellectual property provisions that were advantageous to the brand. They would own it, not the creator. It was things like termination. Like I couldn't even walk away from the deal if I wanted to because I didn't have that right, but the brand did. And even payment. Payment terms under that agreement began at net 60 days, which means that I'd post the video and then I'd have to wait 60 days to get paid, when ideally you'd pay me as soon as I post it, if not even before that. So I don't think much of it at the time. I'm more focused on social media, and I just think in the back of my head, okay, that's kind of weird, but it is what it is. I'm not really in control, and it's just not of my concern. Well, a few months go by and I get more of these deals. Drop my fidget spinner. I get more of these deals, and I see the same pattern erupting over and over. Brands are taking advantage of creators. They are ripping them off. Creators, on the other hand, they have pretty much no representation or advocacy. I had not even seen a creator talk about having a lawyer ever before, and a lot of creators are just excited at the prospect of making money at all, so they just sign on the dotted line and don't even think twice, even though they could be signing away a lot of really important stuff. And I have a lot of respect for content creators. So, you know, when I quit working in big law, I never knew if I would practice law again, right? I knew I had the option because that's the benefit of having the JD. You don't have to practice forever. You can stop, and then 5 years later, you can start again. But I had no intention of starting my own law firm until I started getting deeper and deeper into the content creator space, and I realized how much I really loved and respected content creators. Because in our world of the internet today, being a content creator has a lot of unique stressors and challenges that are pushed onto the shoulders of creators who are honestly, at the end of the day, just trying to share something. You know, in my case, it was sharing my own mental health experiences and working in the legal profession. For other people, it's sharing their recipes or sharing their life or telling stories. But you get all sorts of messed up stuff in your direction on the internet. You get hatred, you get violence, you get people doxing you, and all of that just for trying to share something with the world and maybe entertain or teach somebody something. Personally, I think that there is tremendous value in the work that content creators do for all of the reasons I just stated. So when I saw them getting screwed over in social media, and I knew that I had the ability to handle these contracts because in my old job at Wilson Sonsini, I was basically the highest tier of contract lawyer you can imagine. I was doing very complex M&A deals, venture capital deals, working on initial public offerings. The social media brand deals, by contrast, they're pretty simple. You know, they're 3 to 7 pages long. I knew I could do the work. So I'm like, you know what? Let's do it. So I made the decision, what happens now, right? How do you start a law firm? What does that process look like? Let's talk about it. It's actually a lot easier than people think. When you're a lawyer, first things first, the terminology law firm is a bit misleading when you're a solo practitioner because law firm typically connotes like a big building with hundreds of lawyers and paralegals and staff. Whereas when you're a solo practitioner like me, you don't have that. It's just me. And I mean, I have one person who helps me out on some invoicing and other administrative marketing materials, but by and large, it's me. In any event, you're allowed to call yourself a law firm, and so I do. The first thing I wanted to figure out was, what am I gonna name it? And honestly, the name came to me pretty easily. I am a content creator. I want to represent content creators, so I'll name the firm For Creators by Creators PC. In California, to have a legal business as an attorney, you have 2 options for what kind of entity you can choose. You can either become a professional corporation, or PC, that's what I did, or you can become a partnership or an LLP. So I filed this form with the state. It's, 1 to 2 pages, basic information about who I am, my bar number, etc., and I get approved. Woo! So I get approved, and then it's off to the races, technically speaking, once the approval comes in. But in the meantime, when I was still in the pending phase, I started getting the marketing for my law firm up. So I made an Instagram, I made a website, I made a TikTok, I had a logo created from Fiverr from somebody who does these really cool logos. And I also started brainstorming on how I would go out and get clients, because ultimately a law firm is a business. The way you make money is by getting clients. Getting clients is the key. You could be the greatest lawyer in the world, does not matter at all. You will not have a successful business or make any money if you don't have clients. It took about a month for the form to be approved by the state, at which point I just had to get legal malpractice insurance, which is about $1,500 to $2,000 a year for somebody like me who doesn't practice a ton. And I had to draft an engagement letter, which is the form that binds clients to the firm and establishes the relationship between the client and the law firm, and lays out things like confidentiality, the pricing structure, and other boring legal terminology. So I had everything ready. Now the question was, how do I get clients? Well, the lucky part for me, having already been a content creator with a presence online, and thanks to all of you who have been very supportive of me in this journey and spread the word about my services, I actually started getting some inbound requests from friends of friends, or just creators who had heard about me and heard that I was thinking of representing content creators. So I signed my first client about a week after I had formally created the structure of the law firm. Feedme, Alyssa, was my first client. And then over the next few months, clients would trickle in slowly but surely. Most of them would hear about me through social media or through somebody tagging me in a post where, a creator saying, hey, I need help with something, and a lot of word of mouth. I actually didn't do a lot of cold outreach to creators initially, mainly because I didn't have the bandwidth for it. And I frankly wanted to try to market at a bigger level rather than going out individually, because I, at least personally, don't feel like reaching out via cold email is super effective, especially in an industry like, being an attorney, a solo practitioner, because it's a very relationship built business. And I do think that reaching out cold makes the person on the other end feel kind of just less important, like a commodity. And that's like the opposite impression that I really want to have with my clients. The relationship I want to have with them is, you're a friend, right? And I'm a trusted confidant, I'm an advisor. You're not important to me as a client. It's the opposite. You're very important to me. So I think cold emailing and whatnot can get the relationship off on the wrong foot in a way that I just don't like. So now it's late last year, and I have a roster of, let's call it 35 or so clients. About half of those are content creators and social media influencers. A quarter of them are small businesses and startup companies, and a quarter are individuals who need specific contract review or defense from getting a cease and desist letter for defamation, for example. Let's talk briefly about some of the work that I do for these clients. The first are brand deal reviews, the thing that actually got me interested in representing creators to begin with. Every time a content creator pairs up with a brand, every time a brand pairs up with a creator to advertise the brand's services to the creator's audience, 98% of the time, there's an agreement that is negotiated and signed by the creator and by the brand, typically called a social media marketing agreement. So I'll take these agreements when a creator sends them to me. I'll review them and see, okay, what do we need to edit? What do we need to push back on? And I'll send it back to the brand, and we go back and forth until we get a final draft. Some of the issues that I spot in these agreements that we continue to negotiate for clients are indemnification, the thing I mentioned earlier. Typically, I try to cap it for my clients instead of eliminating it completely, because a lot of brands won't go for that. And sometimes, honestly, brands won't go for any changes at all because they're just unwilling to negotiate because they have a lot of the leverage in these relationships most of the time. But I like to limit indemnification typically to $5,000 to $10,000 or to the value of the contract, because I just think it's unfair to hold a creator potentially liable for millions and millions of dollars in legal fees when they're gonna get paid like $5,000 from the social media deal. It just makes no sense. But I also like to edit these agreements to reflect payment terms being made up front. I like to make sure that the intellectual property provisions actually reflect the business side of the deal. So is the creator owning the IP? Or is the brand owning it? Typically that's something they talk about directly, but if they don't, I advocate and tell my creators, I want you to own the intellectual property, because that's the thing that long-term really retains value, is the content that they're producing for their channel talking about the brand. And then there's other provisions like termination, the right to walk away from the agreement, a penalty if the brand decides to walk away, the jurisdiction of choice in the event that there's actually a conflict and they're gonna sue each other. Where are they gonna sue each other? I usually make that California so that I can help them in the event that that actually happens. So social media brand deal agreements, that is about 25% of my practice. Then there's management agreements, which are the agreements that social media influencers will sign on and make with agencies that are supposed to go and bring them brand deals. Typically what that relationship looks like is the content creator will get 80% of the revenue from brand deals, and the management company will get 20% from anything they bring in. To my surprise, there's a lot of shadiness happening in the management agency side of this industry. Management agencies that are not paying creators, that don't provide them copies of the contracts they sign, that don't allow them to leave and basically trap them and threaten them with lawsuits if they want to leave and go work for another management company. So about 15% of my practice is focused on representing and helping creators either sign onto management agreements with a new agency or helping them get out of an agency agreement because they don't like their agency anymore and they want to go somewhere else. I don't want to bore you with the legal terms. We can do that in a different video, so I'm going to move on and talk about some of the other work that I do. About 30% of my practice is startup work. So in my old law firm, Wilson Sonsini, I was basically a general corporate attorney, which means that I would help startups with incorporation. I'd help them hire their first employee. I'd help them raise money when they needed to raise money from investors. And for the larger companies, it was more complex work, typically SEC regulatory regime work, like reviewing their quarterly report on Form 10Qs, which is this document that you have to submit every quarter with the SEC to disclose information to the public. I had some people approach me who have startup companies, and they range from, in social media to just a mom and pop restaurant to a solo practitioner, marketing person who just wants to help other business owners. It really ranges the types of small businesses that I represent. But that work tends to be helping them incorporate their company, get the paperwork in place for hiring people, firing people sometimes, and advising them on things like intellectual property, trademark, and venture financings and raising capital. Everything I just mentioned is about 90% of the work that I do in my firm. The last 10% is litigation. And litigation, for your benefit, is the actual part of the law where people are suing each other in court, right? It's what you traditionally think of when you think of a lawyer. It's someone out there in the courtroom, the gavel's being banged by the judge and people are yelling at each other, the rules of evidence are being thrown around, right? All that exciting stuff. And I've never litigated before. That was not something I did in my old firm, right? When you're in big law, you don't really see outside of the scope of whatever genre of legal work you're in. So if you're a litigator, you're only doing litigation and you're not doing corporate stuff. If you're a patent attorney, you're not doing corporate stuff ever, nor litigation, you're only doing patent. So in my case, as a corporate generalist, I didn't do any litigation. If you told me go sue somebody in court, I'd be the first guy to go on Google and be like, okay, how do I sue somebody? Let's figure this out together. But in any event, I had a client who was sued by a business owner that they worked with after my client posted a Yelp review on the internet that was a lot of opinions, no statement of fact, and that's important for defamation cases. And even though my client had apologized and taken down the post after it started gaining traction, this bruised ego business owner, they couldn't get over it. And so they decided to sue my client in California state court for over $100,000. My client is a broke college student who works 2 jobs just to help their mother pay rent in the house they to share. So I took the case on pro bono because this is exactly why I wanted to get into this space. Being a content creator is going to be increasingly valuable and important for implications of free speech in the law going forward. And people like this business owner who use the law as a weapon to oppress others, I mean, that's the exact reason I became an attorney to begin with, is to advocate and fight for those who don't have the resources to do so themselves. Because even though the law can be used as a sword, which is exactly what this business owner is using it as, it can also be used as a shield, as it should be. And you know, even though I'm not getting paid for it, that's not important to me because it's good experience, it's an important case, and this is the fun of the law. You know, this is the beauty of being a lawyer. So there's been a little bit of litigation in my firm, and I expect that to grow over time because I honestly really like it. And you can only be so effective as an attorney in advocating for your clients, in my opinion, if you do not know how to litigate. Whereas if you do know how to litigate and go on the offensive and tell the other attorney, hey, you should probably consider doing what my client wants, otherwise we're suing you in federal court. As you can tell, that has a lot of power and authority, and it can help your clients get better results, which is the whole point, at least for me, in advocating for my content creators and social media influencers. Now let's talk about the money. Honestly, law firms have to be some of the simplest business models that exist. You have revenue, you have costs, and revenue is usually billable hours, so it's the number of hours worked times the hourly rate, and then costs can be things like real estate, overhead, software, etc., etc. So costs for my law firm, they're about $500 to $700 per month all in. And that includes the website, DocuSign, G Suite, Microsoft Office, legal insurance, that's the big one, and a co-working space subscription here in Santa Barbara that I use because it's better, at least for my mental health, to get out of my home when I want to do work. And it's about $150 a month. So that's it. I don't have any real estate. I don't have an office. I don't have employees. I don't have fancy health insurance or bougie dinners or any of these other things that really expensive companies and rich companies have. Which, by the way, is super advantageous for my law firm because the way that I personally view my firm, yes, it's a huge commitment and a project and something I feel strongly about, but it's also an income stream for me. It's one project among many others that I can leverage and, you know, pull up and down and put more time into or less time into that has a return. So that makes it nice because I don't need to invest all of my time into it, and instead I can evaluate, okay, how much time is going into this venture, how much is it costing me, and because it doesn't cost me a whole lot, I can keep it running and see where it goes. Now, on the revenue side, these days, about 1 year into launching my firm, I make about $5,000 to $10,000 per month in revenue from my law firm. As we just discussed, I have costs around $500 to $800 a month, so most of that is pure profit. But a couple of things to keep in mind. First, I haven't really been chasing money since I launched this firm. The intention for me has been to develop my expertise and knowledge in the practice area and build trust in the creator community, which sometimes means representing people that don't have means or a ton of money to handle for their cases. So for example, sometimes a creator will come to me and say, hey, I really need help trying to recover money from this brand that stole my content. Can you do anything for me? And I can only pay $100, right? Is there anything you can do? And I'll agree to do, you know, a cease and desist or a demand letter for them for $100, even though the normal rate is much higher, you know, $350, $400, etc. Ultimately, I'm a firm believer in value. And I think that if you provide legal services at an accessible rate for people in a way that can democratize access to the legal profession and the law, in the long run, I can help a lot of people and, you know, yeah, make some money to take care of the bills. Alrighty, that's it for me. Thank you guys, as always, for your time, for your support, for your attention. It means the world to me. I hope that all of you have a wonderful week ahead, day ahead, wherever you are in the world. I hope the weather is great. Please remember to hit that sub button. Leave a comment if you have something that you'd like to hear about from me on the channel. I'm always open to ideas, and be well wherever you are. It was great seeing and talking to you guys. Take care.